share it, I'll enable it.
All right. Well, Dale, here we are again. We're ready to start the fifth week of the playoffs. Usually we think about the fifth week of the playoffs, we're thinking about the state championship games, but we have another week on top of this one. So
Yeah, exactly.
it just, I'll tell you what, though, I've kind of gotten to a point where I don't mind having the 1As or the A's and the double A's consolidated. Because I tell you what, for about 3 or 4 weeks, we've had some really good matchups. I mean, it
Yeah,
seems like it's increased the quality of the playoffs.
and I don't think that the A's. I don't know. I just don't believe there's enough teams, at least in the current alignment. There's enough teams to really subdivide
Right.
A. Um, and I'm not a fan in some ways of this alignment, but not just the in the 1A and 2A, but it's created some big matchup games throughout the whole playoffs. I think every week you could pick top games that you wouldn't think would be taking place for another round or two. Uh, I think it did create that. I don't know. People could talk about the fairness of some teams getting seated lower than they probably should have been, but because of that, it has created some I think very good games.
It definitely has. I think with every realignment, the playoffs matchups seem to get better as deeper in you go into the realignment. At least the playoff formula, I should say.
Right.
Some some teams they'll realize what they've made. The NCHSAA does have the ability to learn, and they'll. I remember one time where they had a 4A team that got basically were seeded with the number one teams, only won 2 games the entire year. I think it was South Caldwell because they played in the 3A 4A conference with McDowell being the only other 4A team, and I mean they were horrible, and they were seeded like fourth or fifth or whatever in the 4As, and the next year the NCSSAA learned it. It's basically said you're not going to be seeded as a number one seed if unless you have at least I think a 400 winning percentage, and if you're not in the top three or something like that. I mean they added some different variables involved into it, which I liked. So
Yeah, it's gonna. I think it'll be interesting to see if the NCHSAA remains the governing body next year. If they reuse the kind of format that they use this year, or are they going to come up with another format? But say what we will, we have had some good games. I think they could tweak. They could find some ways to tweak. Quite honestly, though, Jim, I think the best way to tweak it is to go to five classifications or six classifications, but probably five. I think that's probably our biggest. For me, that's probably the biggest thing about what we've got. I do like. I was a somewhat of a fan of the subdivided, but I do think in some situations, particularly 1A, I wasn't so sure if it was entirely needed. But I
well,
guess
I'll
they're
tell you
going for a while.
one of these during the off season, I'm gonna give you my epic my evil plan about how I do everything with the realignment. But basically, I'd have the small teams playing 1A, the average size teams playing in 2A, and the big teams playing in 3A, and then subdividing them both 1A, 2A, and 3A. So you'd
Hmm.
have 6 state championships. And the thing is, if you have 1A, 2A, 3A, you're not going to have that many subdivided conferences. And with just even with 4 classifications, we are loaded down with subdivided conferences. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'd like to do is because most of your really big teams are going to be concentrated in the Charlotte area, the Greater Charlotte area, the Triads, and the Triangle. You're going to have some pockets in Cumberland County and down in Wilmington, and a couple teams here in Greenville, New Bern area. But I think that's the way I'd go with it. And I know everybody says, well, South Carolina's smaller than us, and they have five classifications. South Carolina is geographically compact. I mean,
Very, very much so.
I mean,
Exactly.
I think if you go right to the center of the state, you can get anywhere within. I think anywhere within the center is what 125 miles, or so. I mean,
Well, yeah, I
it's
would say within 2.5 to 3 hour, at the
right,
most. There's no Murphy to Manio kind of
exactly
stretch of a potential two teams playing each other. So
right,
uh, something like that might work, but I think what I would do in addition to that is I might have like a Power 16 or something that you take the 16 biggest schools. This is something that South Carolina has done,
yeah, I
and
agree,
they play in their own conference because I do think that's another thing is that maybe the biggest schools and not a full classification like we have right now, a 4A, but split that to about a quarter of what it is at least, and
right.
make that its own big classification. So that might be a little more than 16, but don't go no more than any more than 32.
Right.
Um, somewhere in that neighborhood, say 16, 24, or 32.
You could
Uh,
take the biggest 10 teams in the Mecklenburg area and the biggest 10 teams in the Wake or the Triangle area and have its own classification basically, and it'd be a lot
yeah,
of fun for everybody.
of course, the thing there is that, especially in Charlotte, well, we'll see what happens because the new high school is going to open up this fall, and what that does with some of the numbers, but it may end up pushing most of the schools are going to be very similar in size, with the potential exception of Myers Park because they don't play with Myers Park's district too much, but I guess that's all food for another day. But I don't think we have quite the alignment that's really ideal for football. Maybe basketball, but I don't think it's as ideal for football.
Well, I've seen we get some messages from Chris Brady. Pender, my thoughts on Pender and Tarboro. We'll get to that in just a little
Hmm.
bit. Tarboro needs to go back in 2A. I totally agree with that in football. Actually, I wouldn't be that against him going to 3A, to be honest with you.
Right.
Um, Tim says, then you end up like Shelby in there with a lot of weak teams. Yeah, I can see that with when you're talking about having that big 16, big 20. You're right, it does dilute that stuff. And then Chris says, how many private schools other than Charlotte Catholic and Cardinal Gibbons are there? Shouldn't they play in a private conference? I think there's what we need to change our terminology a little bit.
Yes.
Instead of using private, I say do non-public, because Catholic and Cardinal Gibbons are not private schools; they're parochial schools, and there is a difference between the two. But I understand what you're talking about the non. They are non-public schools, and uh, should they play in it? It's kind of hard to say on that. If Cardinal Gibbons was in his own conference, they would have nobody. Basically, private schools even become close to them in size. There's nothing over there in the Wake County area, except for maybe Ravenscroft, and even that's probably. I bet you Ravenscroft's probably 3 times smaller. Now, if you look at Catholic, I mean, I guess how big is Providence Day? Is it like they have 600 kids? You think,
Well,
or
Yeah, Catholic's much larger than Providence Day,
yeah,
and Jim, I don't think that's the issue. Honestly, if a school abides by the regulations set down by the state, what does it matter? I mean, even if Providence Day and Country Day and Charlotte Latin and Charlotte Christian would all abide by the NCHSAA rules, I'd love to have them in the association. But
right,
they don't want to play by the NCHSAA rules, whereas Cardinal Gibbons and Charlotte Catholic do. So,
right,
should they be in the um, in the NCISAA is what's being asked, put them in the NCISAA. And I say no because they're willing to abide by our association rules.
The other thing that's in favor of keeping the parochial schools is the money. Also, I'm gonna tell you right now, the parochial schools, they do bring fans to the stands. They travel well. I know Charlotte Catholic and Cardinal Gibbons travel really well, and they do pay for a lot of
Hmm.
expenses. Now, I grew up in the Rocky River Conference back in the '80s.
Yep.
Charlotte Catholic was a member of the Rocky River Conference, and believe it or not, we used to North Stanley used to kick Catholic's
Yep.
ass
Exactly.
in golf. I mean, we played
Yeah,
golf
in
against
a
each
country
other.
club, but
Yeah, the country club sports, we beat the hell out of them. And football, their size wasn't any bigger than us, and they kicked our asses. I mean,
uh-huh.
it's all about the fundamentals and stuff like that. I'm a supporter of the parochial schools. I will say this: this is an additional safeguard, at least for appearances. I don't have a problem with having Catholic and Cardinal Gibbons you know play up a classification. Catholic and Cardinal Gibbons are both 4As. Now the other schools
Yep.
that are parochial schools are Christ the King, which is a small 1A school, and Bishop McGuinness, which is a kind of an average 1A size school. I don't know if I think I can't remember if Bishop is still 1A or if they gone up to 2A, but I think both Bishop and Christ the King. I have no problems if they were forced to move up to one classification. I think it'd be good for not really football per se, but for the other
Hmm.
sports.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think there can be some trade off of the argument that people have is, well, they don't have any real defined districts like the other um, publics do, and there's some argument to that. But I think thing people don't understand is that the kids that, let's say, are seniors, I'd say 90, my guess would be somewhere around 97% of those kids, maybe more, were with each other at Holy Trinity in middle school.
They're
So,
Catholic also.
yeah, exactly. They're Catholic and they
Uh,
have been together the entire time. It's not like, Catholic is bringing people in, Charlotte Catholic's bringing people in from that would say maybe be going to public schools. No, that's not happening. But still is a bit of a trade off. Having them play upper classifications, not a. I'm not against that at all, and I don't
so
think they are either.
something else that I know what a lot of people are concerned about, of course, is the recruiting aspect. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's more public school. I know several public schools that actively recruit, and I think most people do
Yep.
also. And I have more issues with that than even with having the parochial schools play up a classification. I think with
Hmm.
the public schools, a lot of times they hide behind that. That thought that we're not really recruiting, blah blah blah. But it goes back to the days when you had the mill jobs. You had this big old athlete and he wanted to play. And you know what? All of a sudden, mom or dad had a job at the mill, and the kid
Hmm.
ended up locating in that school. And
Exactly.
that's the big thing on that. So, tell you what, we got some questions on the football. I'll tell you, let's go ahead and look at the 1As. How about it?
Okay, and Chris, we're going to get to the South Point Dudley here real quick, so give us
Yeah.
time to roll there.
So last week, Tarboro beat Northampton 27-8. No surprise there. I thought Tarboro would handle Northampton.
Hmm.
The surprise, I wouldn't say maybe not really a surprise, but I knew this game was going to be close. I picked Northside to beat Pender, but Pender won 34-28. I do know that Pender has an explosive offense. Can they do anything against Tarboro? I think Tarboro will win this game. It probably the second half Tarboro will pull away. The one thing about Tarboro is you got to go vertical if you're going to beat them. I don't think Pender is going to be able to throw the ball against Tarboro. I'm going to take Tarboro by a couple scores.
Yeah, so we do this here, sane or not,
Yeah.
and I think this game could be, Jim. I kind of agree with you. I think this game could be close. I don't know how long it will be close. I picked Tarboro personally from the get go to win the state, and I'm certainly not backing out on it now. And I think I can. I think you're saying in the fact I can. I'm right with you. I think it could be a two-score game.
Now, last week in the West, Robbinsville Murphy, that is a Southern, or was a Smoky
Mhm.
Mountain Conference rematch, and Robbinsville won the regular season game, and they won the playoff game. They skunked Murphy, beat them 28-14. Skunk them as in they beat them 2 times in a year, which is impressive. They will get to play Mitchell, and Mitchell really spoiled me.
Wow.
I, I thought Mount Airy would beat Mitchell,
Same
and
here.
Mitchell won 21-14. That's the reason why I love it when I'm wrong, because it means we get more parity in the classifications. We've got four really good teams in the West. I mean, Mitchell, Mount Airy, Robbinsville,
Hmm.
Murphy. You can also throw in Thomasville. You can throw in Eastern Randolph, North Rowan. I mean, you got some pretty good teams in the 1As in the West.
Yeah,
But this next week, I am just scratching my head about who's going to win this game. It's kind of like my heart is
Mitchell.
with Mitchell. My head's going to go with Robbinsville. Almost side with my head in this one.
Hmm.
But this is a coin flip here. It really depends on who's the healthiest. Both teams are going to run the ball. Both teams have somewhat of a passing game. Both teams play really good defense. For Mitchell to hold Mount Airy to 14 points is just beyond impressive. I don't know if they're going to do it 2 weeks in a row. I'll take Robbinsville, but this game could go really either way.
Yeah, I'm like 100% with you because it's after what they did Friday night, the and Mitchell. And who knows what kind of momentum that may roll for them this week, what their week of practice has been like, and what things will look like tomorrow night. And it's kind of one of those things that you like to see them just from a excitement point, since we don't have any horses in the race there, of seeing them do well. I think that's not the logical choice, though. The one that, as you say, the head says that you should pick.
Right.
I do believe if they can roll correctly, come out and play well, and play their ball game, they can make a ball game of it. And if the thing is if you can keep yourself around to the fourth quarter in a game, anything can happen. But that's not the logical choice to pick Mitchell. So
Right.
you're saying I'm with you.
It's interesting. Of these four teams, I've seen Tarboro play several times, seen Robbinsville and Mitchell play several times. Pender
Hmm.
is a team I've never seen play in person. I saw them play on television against Albemarle back 10 years ago for the 1AA state championship, or 11 years ago.
Hmm.
Albemarle won that game. But interesting thing about that game back, I think it was 2010, that Tom Eanes was the head coach of Pender. And Tom Eanes was also at one time the head coach of Albemarle back in the late 80s, early 90s. So,
Hmm.
what I do remember on that, let's go to the two ways. Let's see here. This is going to be an interesting game here. Princeton last week, they beat St. Paul's 45-28. I believe I did pick Princeton to win that game. And they get to play Wallace Rose Hill, who I did pick to beat Northeastern.
Yeah.
I thought Wallace Rose Hill was going to beat them. This is a game that I'm really excited about the prospects of watching this one. If I was in Johnston County, I probably would jump over to Princeton and see this game. Both teams like to run the ball. Both teams have really explosive offense. It's all about who can shut out the other team's defense. I just honestly, I just can't decide on this, but I am going to go with Wallace Rose Hill. I'm gonna say it's by about 4 points.
Yeah.
I think this game could go either way, though, but I think Walls Rose Hill is just a little bit better. And I do think the home field advantage for Princeton is not going to be that big because Walls Rose Hill, they do travel really well. I'm going with Walls Rose Hill. How about you, Dale?
Yeah, I think you're saying. I think that Wallace Rose Hill is the logical pick here. Um, and I was thinking about this game the other night, and yeah, four, maybe I think a little, maybe a few more points is what if I were given a spread, I'd give probably seven. But yeah, I think you're saying.
Now, last week, this was a granddaddy of them all, Shelby versus Ray'sville. These are the two
Mhm.
most winningest programs in the last 60 years in the state of North Carolina. Shelby prevails. They beat Ray'sville 31-14. So Shelby will be playing East Surrey. East Surrey beat
Mhm.
Maiden 36-35. I think Maiden had a 28-14 lead sometime early in the third quarter. And, momentum has this weird way. You think one team is taking the momentum. Next thing you know, the other team makes a big play. They capitalize on it. The other teams just can't get over that big mishap. And next thing you know, you lose the game. I'm not going to say that happened to Maiden, but I think East Surrey from what I gathered, East Surrey fans were very happy to walk out with that win against Maiden. I thought last week, though, to be honest with you, I said this in my head. It kind of reminded me back in the 1983 NCAA basketball tournament where you had Houston and Louisville playing in one game, then you had Georgia and this
Yeah,
team in Raleigh. Was it NC State, I think?
I don't know. Some
And a lot of people were joking around back then that there was the varsity versus the JVs game. The first game was the or the Houston Louisville
yeah.
game was the varsity, and NC State Georgia was the JVs. Well, guess what? The JV team ended up winning the national championship. I think that was kind of how I had in my head, though, that Easter and Maiden was kind of like the JV side of it.
Hmm.
That's not the case. Easter could beat Shelby. Shelby better not have a letdown. If they have a letdown, East Surrey can and will win this game. I'm going to say Shelby doesn't have a letdown. I think Shelby will win by about 10, 12 points. That being said, if East Surrey, if they capitalize on some fumbles or interceptions, if they do a good job with special teams, they can and will win this game. Shelby, I'll take you by 12 points, but you're ripe for an upset, so be careful.
So first, we got to commend Maiden for what a playoff run, and it ended not in a way that they wanted it to end, but commend them for a great playoff run. Uh, didn't really think they'd make it that far. I can see what you're saying about East Surrey. Um, I mean, I don't think they're a team that Shelby should sleep on. I do think they're going to have to come out and play a very good football game. Um, I don't know if they have to play their best game to win, but I do think they have to play a very good game to win. Uh, if East Surrey comes out and plays their best, let's say.
Right.
I do think that Shelby can play a little under what might be their highest potential and still win. Uh, but I just got a feeling that Shelby's going to come out and play great football Friday night. And what a place to be. That could be a very fun game, but I'm actually going to go a little higher on the margin than you. So I'm going to say 14 points.
14
Uh,
points.
yeah, I just think that you don't want to regional finals. Uh, I don't know. I just don't think you want to go tangle with that lion this Friday night. Um, but East Surrey definitely brings their ball game, and if Shelby just plays what you would call a good football game, they can lose this game. They
Right.
really have got to. They've got to play solid football. They play solid football, they win by a touchdown or more. They play their to their full potential. Yeah, I think they got a two touchdown win.
It should be a good game. Either way, you're gonna see some really good football down over in Cleveland County.
I
That's
think
no
so. I don't think
no.
it's going to be a blowout game of you know three scores or more. No.
Now, last week, going to the 3As, I did pick Jacksonville to beat Eastern Alamance. I thought
Mhm.
that Jacksonville was a little bit more battle tested than Eastern Alamance. I thought that the teams were somewhat Eastern Alamance maybe didn't have quite the competition. Actually, I know they didn't have quite the competition as Jacksonville. Jacksonville did win. They will get to play J.H. Rose, who to me really
Mhm.
surprised me. I did not see them beating Scotland by 3 touchdowns.
I didn't either. I didn't see them beating them by any touchdowns. So
Yeah, I picked Scotland to
hate
win that
that.
game. I
Me
thought the
too.
Scotland would win by 1 or 2 points or so, but I thought it was going to be a close one. But now Rose, those guys, they know how to move the ball. They know how to get out on their roller skates and score, but they also have a good defense. From what I've gathered with Rose, Rose might be just a little bit more of a little bit more fundamentally sound in Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville has played tougher competition though, so I can see this game really going either way. But I'm gonna take Rose. I think this home field advantage is gonna pull them out. I'm gonna go Rose by about 4 points.
Yeah, I agree. You're very sane there. Hard to pick a margin. I think it's I don't know. I think the line would have to be somewhere under one score. Um, so yeah, I think you're right in line.
Now the West Side. This is some fun games here. Last week, South Point. What did they do? They
Yeah.
exacted some revenge against Crest. Beat the Crest Chargers 34-27.
Hmm.
They get to play Dudley. They get to travel to Dudley. Dudley beat Statesville 20-6. Dudley is a team that I just cannot pick against in the playoffs this year, or hardly any year. South Point at the same time. Let's look at this. They came in as a 16 seed. They beat who was that? Eastern. Oh gosh, who was that? Eastern. It pops up here again. Eastern Guilford. Okay, they beat them by 10. Beat Pisgah by 3 points. Beat Forest View by 20. The Crest game, they've kind of, to me, they've kind of been a sleeper team. They haven't really beaten anybody that exciting. Eastern Alamance, I mean, or not Eastern Alamance, Eastern Guilford. That was a good win, but not an exciting win. Beating
Right.
Pisgah, I thought Pisgah was overrated. Hate to say that to my friends over in Canton, but I did. Forest View, I knew that Forest View would have a challenge against South Point. I think I actually might have picked Forest View, but more of a heart move. Beating Crest though does I think they're no longer a sleeper anymore. But Dudley is just loaded. I mean, they have a great offense, great defense. Hate to say this South Point, but I'm gonna take Dudley. It might be about 14 points too.
Yeah, I thought that the Forest View win was a good win, and the Crest win was an excellent win. Um, did not pick them to beat Crest, and I think that's huge. This late in the playoffs, especially to win a big game like that against a program like Crest. That's pretty huge. But we knew coming into the playoffs, Dudley was the team to beat, and Dudley, excuse me, Dudley was, head and shoulders. It appeared to be above everybody else. So for South Point to be able to beat Dudley, South Point's going to, this the common thing is South Point's got to come in and play their best football. They
Right,
can't have turnovers. They're going to have to force some turnovers. They got to hope that Dudley makes mistakes, and then depending on how many, that might just bring the game even.
right.
Um, it's hard to see. And I'm sorry, South Point fans. It's just hard to see that South Point can win this game. Can they? That old thing about, they put their pants on the same as everyone else does. That's true. And, South Point's got lots of tradition that, yeah, they can bring along with them. And they've played some fairly solid football all season. Uh, that I really do believe that these last 2 weeks, Jim, have been very good wins. I really felt like Forest View was a very good team, and so them beating Forest, I think, was really good. So, Jim, it's hard to. I don't think you're insane at all. So I'm sorry. Uh, Two scores is where you would have to put the line at for this game. And
Yeah.
as we all know, hey, look, you mentioned my boys, NC State. They certainly weren't. Heck, they weren't picked to go to the Final Four, let alone win. In fact, it was kind of a surprise that they.
Made the tournament.
Exactly. I hate to say those things. So, hey, South Point can win this thing. Let's see what happens.
The cardiac pack. I mean, that was anybody get a chance to watch Survive in Advance on ESPN. This is great. They
That was the best season ever. It really that tournament was just amazing.
just
Exactly.
amazing tournament for the state, at least. Now the 4As. I've seen both the teams in the they're left in the 4A East. Last week I was at this game, Rollsville, Leesville Road. At halftime, Leesville Road was up 21-14. They
Hmm.
get a field goal. It's 24-14. And I saw some of the Louisville Road players do this number right here to some of the Roseville players. And I mean, they were just making fun of them, laughing at them. And I'll tell you what, Roseville just opened that proverbial can of whoop butt and
Yeah.
scored 33 points, uh, unanswered 33 points. Roseville wins 47-24. Um, and when I saw it wasn't the whole team, it was just a few players about it. But I'll tell you right now, as soon as I saw that, is I remember the old song "Don't Tug on Superman's Cape."
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Rollinsville went to the state championship last year. They were a team that you just can't insult like that. You got to respect on that.
Yeah.
Great coaching, just incredible coaching. The incredible depth. A lot of people don't realize that about Rolesville, but they have a lot of players that suit up every Friday night. Rolesville has probably the best offense I've seen this whole year. It's not no, actually I know that they got the best offense I've seen the whole year. I've seen Joyous Chambers play also. I'll take Rolesville's offense. Their defense is something that's they do allow a lot of teams to score. They do allow a lot of yardage. Their defense is kind of their Achilles heel. That offense though is just something to. It's just hard not to discount that offense. They'll be playing Cardinal Gibbons, who beat Panther Creek 42-14. That game was actually played at noon on Friday. I didn't even realize that. They played early because there was a game at NC State, and as you know,
Yeah.
Dale, a lot of the best tailgating in the state of North Carolina is in the parking lot of Cardinal Gibbons. So a lot of people don't realize that, but that is a great place to tailgate over there. This game is going to be interesting. Cardinal Gibbons is a very fundamentally sound team. They don't make mistakes. That said, I think athleticism is going to be a big key for tomorrow night. I'm taking Rollinsville in this game. I'm going to take them by a touchdown. I don't think Cardinal Gibbons has anything to answer that they can throw to this quarterback.
Hmm.
Quarterback Brown for Rollinsville is just out of this world. The kid is 6'4". I'm gonna say I think they list him as 195. I'm gonna say he's probably 210 or so, but there's not an ounce of fat on this kid. And I saw him make 6 defenders miss last week in the third quarter. That
Hmm.
guy gets faster, he gets stronger. The defense at Rolesville gets stronger too. And they got really energized last week. I'm taking Rolesville. I think they got lightning in the bottle on this one. What's
Okay.
your thoughts, Dale?
Well, I thought you were going to take Cardinal Gibbons, and I was prepared to go against you because I really did. I thought that this would be a game you'd pick Cardinal Gibbons because I think a lot of people are, but I like Roseville's chances. The interesting thing about what you said about the tugging on Superman's cape. Uh, One thing players should learn is you should never give your opponent any motivation at any point in the game. You should never motivate them. You should demotivate them. And if you feel like um, trash talking and belittlement is going to demotivate someone, no, no, not winners. Now, it might demotivate a team that was 0-9, and you're playing on the 10th game of the season. They're 0-9. Yeah, it might demotivate them. Or they're 4-6, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a team that has won some pretty big ball games in here in the playoffs. So
All right.
what a stupid thing to do is all I can say. But I'm with you. I think the game's going to be a very competitive ball game. Um, but I do. I go with you both in spread and pick.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be a fun game. If I go to a game, I will go to that one, I'm sure. But I don't know if I'll be able to make a game tomorrow night or not. Now, in your area, Huff, they beat East Forsyth 26-14.
Yeah.
I was not that surprised by that score. I knew East Forsyth, they played some pretty good defense. I didn't think there was going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. Huff gets to play Julius Chambers. Chambers beat Weddington 45-14. To me, that is a statement win right there. I did not see Weddington getting blown out by
Mm.
31 points, and that is a blowout. So there are no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Well, I was at the game. It was without a question a blowout. I did not expect it. I talked with a couple of the officials during the game. Um, I remember one of them, actually the true side judge, because they had a full complement of officials, and he he told me, he said, "So, did you expect this?" He said, "This is not what I was expecting to see tonight." And um, I told him, absolutely not. I thought this was a game that if Chambers made some mistakes, Weddington might, be able to belly up and push them and could potentially find a way to win. But I'm gonna tell you, it was just no. Chambers was. I don't know how to say it. I've seen two statements from both of these teams this year. I saw the Huff South Met game where I saw a very focused Huff team play. Um, Jim, I've wondered about them since that game, and I'm like you. I can see with East Forsyth that that's not a pushover team. I did. I don't know. I think the one thing that's been concerning about Huff is in that game and in other games since that South Met game, they've had a little bit of struggle in the first half, especially in the first quarter. So anyway, I did mean to cut you off there. The Chambers Weddington game was huge, and it was. I hate it. It was a blowout. It just was. It was non-competitive. As competitive as Weddington kids tried to be, it was non-competitive. That's a statement. That was a huge statement.
Oh, I thought so too. And I saw Julius Chambers play the very first game of the season. I saw them beat Cardinal Gibbons, and they beat them by one score. At the same time
Hmm.
that when I was at the game, it wasn't a one score game. It was more like a feel of like a 3 or 4 score
Right.
game. Cardinal Gibbons is a good team, but Julius Chambers just was in a different zip code.
Yep.
I know Julius Chambers had a high ceiling. I know Huff has a high ceiling. I will say this though: to be the best, you got to beat the best. I mean, I know
Hmm.
that's Ric Flair says this. Call me crazy, but I'm taking Julius Chambers over Huff. I think this game is going to be a is going to be close. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Huff is going to rise to the occasion. If there
Hmm.
was any letdown in the last couple of weeks, I think that will go away. Uh, Julius Chambers has been there. They've been there twice, and I think they can go to a third time. Earlier on the season, Huff beat Julius Chambers, and it's really hard to beat a good team twice, and it's just about impossible to beat a great team twice. And I think Julius Chambers is a great team. I'm gonna take Julius Chambers. I'm gonna say it's by uh, 5 points.
So, and let's not discount that Chambers win at Weddington. Now, when I say discount, let's add to the fact that
Right,
that blowout was at Weddington.
right.
Just
That's a good point. Really good
they
point.
they have, most of the playoffs they've been in the on the road. Um, they did lose to Huff earlier in the season. The problem for them is that they made a number of mistakes, Jim. And mistakes are, killers can be killers. And the, those mistakes were huge. And that's what happened in the Cardinal Gibbons game. They didn't play solid football. Uh, here, Huff. I did not see what the one thing that surprised me about Chambers this past Friday night in that win was that those kinds of mistakes that they have been making throughout the year that they're still winning ball games, but it's like, man, these penalties, and we're talking about penalties. We're that's the kind of mistakes I'm talking about. Penalties at there's never a right time for a penalty, but those kind of penalties that just kill things. And that really didn't happen Friday night. Um, Now they didn't play perfect. If they'd played perfect, it would have been even worse. But let me tell you, they played some of the best football I believe they've played this year Friday night. And I'm picking Huff. I mean, excuse me, I'm picking Chambers. And so I don't think you're saying, um, oh man, I think the game's going to be highly competitive, but I could even see this game stretching to 10 points, somewhere in that 10-point range, Jim.
Gotcha.
Um, I'm gonna give a little bit larger spread than you. I'm a
Okay.
little more, so I guess I'm a little more confident in that Chambers can win, but Huff has got a team. So this is one of those things that if either team is playing, their best football, the other team better be, or it's not going to be pretty for either team,
Right.
for whichever team. So, um, even though I'm with you and I pick Chambers, I do believe that if Huff plays their best football and Chambers only plays really good football, they'll get beat. They
Right.
they will get beat. The big key for Huff is going to be they need to come out. So there's just a few keys for Huff. Huff needs to shut down number three, man, best running back. I showed some guys today one of his Smothers highlights from his Myers Park game last year. I don't know if you saw it. I had a great video of it that I took, and then Under the Radar had a great video, and this was where in all of his step move cuts, one of them is where he actually steps backwards, and he doesn't lose stride in all this that he does. So it's like a fluid motion of making a step forward and then immediately stepping backwards and then to the left and then going forward and making guys miss. And Huff pretty much handled him. And Huff in the playoffs has done a good job of handling running backs. They've got a very good defense.
Oh yeah.
So if they can hold Smothers down, if Smothers has a 200-yard night, they win. Well, 150, 200 yards, they win. But Huff's going to have to shut him down, hold him under 75, let's say. So when he gets around 100, 125, I could see a tight ball game. I'm hopeful that I'm able to go to this game. I'm gonna say that I'm in Macon, Georgia right now, and I hope I can get back in time. That's the game I want to go to.
That should be a fun game to go to. So we're going to kind of change pass a little bit here. Looking at the state championship games for next weekend, the very first game is on Friday at 7 o'clock. It's at Keenan Stadium. It's going to be the 3A championship.
Hmm.
And right now, we picked all 8 games this week. We picked the same winners. We picked Rose to win, and we picked Dudley to win. Rose versus Dudley. I'm gonna say Dudley is the first team to win the state championship next week. I'm taking Dudley over Rose. How about you?
There's no question. Dudley was my pick when we went in to win the state, and nothing has changed to make me think that they can't win it all.
Exactly right. I think Dudley's just a team on the mission. Now the next game is at noon at Keenan Stadium, the
Hmm.
1A state championship, and this is the interesting one here. We both picked Robbinsville and we both picked Tarboro. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure Tarboro's going to win that game. Robbinsville versus Mitchell. I don't think it matters who wins that game, to be honest with you. And I'm sorry to say that to the teams in the West.
Yeah.
Tarboro's just that darn good. I'm going to take Tarboro to win. I think they're good by a couple scores. Either one of those teams.
And so Tarboro was my pick coming into the first round of the playoffs. Nothing that they have done has changed that. I am highly impressed with what Mitchell has done. So it would be cool to see them to get an opportunity, but like you say, I don't think it matters who wins that ball game. That's Tarboro's championship.
Pretty much so. I think Mitchell played in the 2015 or 2014. They went to the state championship. I think it was 2000, one of those years, and they lost to, I think it was like Wallace Rose Hill or somebody. Uh, so Mitchell has tasted it, but Robbinsville, they've won about 12 or
Yeah.
13 state championships. So
What a storied program that is.
you got that right. So we both of us taking Dudley and Tarboro over in Keenan Stadium. So
Hmm.
then the fun starts over at Carter Finley. And to be honest with you, Dale, I've been to both Carter Finley, I've been to Keenan. I graduated from UNC, obviously, but
Hmm.
Carter Finley's got the better atmosphere. It's got the better amenities, if you ask me. Uh, Two-way game. I've always been high on Shelby. Shelby, I'm predicting is going to play Wallace Rose Hill. I think this is going to be an epic battle. I think Wallace Rose Hill is really, if it's possible for Wallace Rose Hill to fly under the radar, they have. Uh, at least going into the playoffs, I think most people are thinking about East Duplin being the better team,
Hmm.
but they've done really well. I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to take Shelby though. I think Shelby's the would be the safer pick.
Well, the good thing is that Shelby was also my pick at week one to win it. And the only thing is that I may be a little less confident that I still think they can win it. I still think it's theirs to win.
Right.
But Wallace Rose Hill, I agree with you. And if there's a team around that's the four teams remaining right now, that's the team, or the other three teams, let's say, that's the team that could beat Shelby. But Shelby was my pick at week one to go all the way, and that does not change. So I feel pretty good, although I did pick teams like Scotland to make it,
Right.
um, uh, deeper than what they did, but um, actually, I picked them to make it all the way to to play in the finals, not to win. But yeah, I'm with you, Shelby. I think this is another Shelby win. But of the games so far, this one's the one I'm the least confident on
Right. The
for
same
sure.
here. Exactly the same here. I feel the same way. So let's go to the 4As. This one, Roseville is my pick, our pick out of the East, and they would be playing Chambers out of the West. This is it's hard not to be biased, and that's the one thing you always have to break down is I like Roseville a whole lot. I like Chambers a whole lot. I like both
Uh-huh.
of their coaching staffs. I like their players. And Dale, I'm gonna tell you a real quick story about before I tell you my pick on this.
Hmm.
I wanted this guy. His name's Javante. He plays for Rolesville. I invited him to join us at Carolina Varsity next year, and let me explain why. I saw him in I think the
Okay.
very, or maybe the second series in the second half against Millbrook. He goes in there and he gets hurt. Everybody thought it was a high ankle sprain. He was in a lot of pain too, and he was down for the count, but he got up and he did not leave that field. He wanted to make sure his fans, his friends, were supported, his colleagues, his teams, and he's like, these guys are my
Team
blood
play.
here. These are my guys that he showed a lot of character on that. Well,
Yep.
found out he didn't have a high ankle sprain. He had broken his tibia,
Oh my gosh.
and he was out there. He had surgery. I think it's going to earlier on this week, about 10 days after breaking. I think it was a tibia he broke, and tibia or fibia,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. But he had a broken
Wow.
leg,
Wow.
and he I talked to walked up to Martin Samick, the head football coach at Roseville. I said, "I'll tell you what, you're number 40. What's this guy's name?" He said, "It's Javante." I said, "I'll tell you what, he is a man. He was in pain, and he talked to this 50-year-old guy, and he asked some good questions, and he talked to me, and we talked about his future and all this other stuff, and he said he didn't know exactly what he wanted to do next year. I said, I'll tell you what, if he doesn't have any plans, sure proof plans on Friday nights next year, I want him to join my team. Anybody who's that tough that wants to support
Yeah.
his teammates, he needs to be on my team." And Martin looked up at me. He said, "Jim, I'll vouch for him. He is a winner." So I went up to him, talked to him. He said, "Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I appreciate that."
Awesome.
Um, so my heart is really torn because I love both of these programs, Roseville and
Right.
Chambers. I am going to take Chambers, though. I think my head is uh, just a little bit more on their side there. I
Hmm.
see the power of threes. Mauer Creek wins 3 state championships. Before that, Butler won 3 out of 4. Mauer Creek won 3 in a row. Wake Forest won 3 in a row. This would be Julius Chambers' third year in a row.
Hmm.
I'm taking Julius Chambers. That's the stupidest logic ever, but I'm going with
No.
it right now.
So I picked Chambers to win against Huff. I do have to say that coming into the playoffs, I wasn't sure between Huff and Chambers. Um, I think maybe first week I picked Chambers, but by the second week I was behind Huff. Um, and but I'm back to Chambers. I think this is a state championship, to
Yeah,
be honest with you. I think either one, the winner of this game, no matter who it is, wins the state championship.
I agree.
Um, I hate to say that, no disrespect to Roseville. I'm really impressed with, or Cardinal Gibbons, should they happen to make it. I'm really impressed with Roseville, especially. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. We don't disagree on any of the four state championships. I don't know if that's good for the teams.
Well, I'll tell you what, anything can happen. Who I picked to win this week might not be who I pick next week. It all depends on what we see and what we observe and what we hear. Now we do
Exactly.
have a couple comments. Kim Bumgarner says last week's game at Huff, the temperature was 35 degrees at game time. This week it could be 65. Make a difference? Yeah, I think it makes a difference. I think that's when you don't. I don't think it's going to be warm enough where you're going to have cramps per se. I think you have to be in the 80s and have it humid. But I will say this: playing football, getting hits at 35 degrees versus getting hit at 65 degrees is a different sensation.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm trying to think, who has advantages with that. And I don't think,
I don't
because
think
the thing about the two teams is they're very similar, with the exception that Huff has the potential to be better in the passing game. They're a really good quarterback. And um, they've got some great receivers. And the a warmer weather like that does tend to play better for a passing game.
agree.
And that is their yeah, and yes, they are big boys. So they're both big teams, big boys. Both of them have big lines and fast lines. It's amazing to watch those linemen, especially the D linemen on both sides. The speed, agility, quickness, and strength is phenomenal to watch, and it's both of them. I mean, they both have got it. They smothered. I watched Huff smother South Meck. I watched Chambers smother Weddington, and the smothering of Weddington was just a shocker to me in a team that's accustomed to playing smash mouth football. But having the speed to go with the size. So there could be some advantages for Huff, maybe. But then again, maybe a back run's better when he's a little looser too. 65 is not so bad that you're sweating to death. It's not like, late August. And
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, maybe I have to feel that maybe backs can run a little bit better. You've got your muscles, maybe that's a good, the most ideal temperature not playing for, I think, humans is around 72 degrees. So you want to be cooled down a little bit for playing ball. So I don't know. You're probably 50s is a not more
50.
ideal temperature for football, but yeah, that's
I
gonna
used to I used to run distance. The perfect temperature for running distance for me was around 47, 48 degrees.
yeah, exactly. You want something
But
that's gonna cool you down enough.
now, the one thing that I know Kim mentioned the temperature. What I remember about last week was the winds. At least in the Triangle area, anybody
Hmm.
that saw the Carolina State game, they know exactly what I'm talking about. The wind was fierce. It
Right.
was not only cold, it was windy. And you throw 35 degrees without
Hmm.
wind is one thing. 35 degrees with a lot of wind, it's a lot colder. And
The
it
wind that we had wasn't bad. From what I recall, I don't recall it being real windy. There was maybe a little breeze at times, but it wasn't anything uncomfortable. One thing, real quickly, I see there, Chris asking who did we pick? We both picked Shelby, but we think
right.
it's. Um, I think we both agree that if Shelby plays their ball game, they're going to win comfort. It will be a comfortable win. It will not be a uh, and
Yeah, Shelby just can't have a letdown. That's the big thing. And after playing a team like Raceville, you can have a letdown.
yeah,
Shelby's so well coached. I don't think they're going to have a letdown, but even really well coached teams have letdowns. So just have to be cognizant of that.
exactly. I see Ken saying Huff is a great tandem. Resting will be important. They both have depth. Both teams have depth. Um, there's no huge advantage for either team in that area. I don't think. Um, Huff has the best quarterback. They have the better quarterback, and they have one of the better quarterbacks in the state. Chambers has got the best running back, and they got one of the best running backs in the nation.
Right.
Kid just got another offer for Ohio State this week.
The
Um,
Ohio State.
the Ohio State, exactly. Um, just he's. I tell you what, Jim, he is ranking up to be one of the best running backs I've seen in high school. I think from an athletic, ability to make a cut off of a step and not lose speed, and just the ability to make some of these cuts that he makes. I've not seen a package totally like this. Um, I don't know if he'd be able to do it if he was a little heavier, a little bigger, but that would maybe be his only knock would be the physical size of him. Um, he says, "I agree that Chambers and Huff is your state championship game." Yeah, Gary, it's unfortunate, but in 4A, that's what we see so much is that the Charlotte teams um, a lot of times end up playing a regional final, um, and they're the better two teams. Wake Forest kind of busted that for several years, and I was glad to see it.
Yeah, me too. The 4A strength had gone so much to the west,
Yeah,
and the thing about it is the 3A strength, the 2A strength, and the 1A strength pretty much gone to the west except for Tarboro.
except
I mean, I
for
think Tarboro's the only one that's won the state championship from the east in the last 2 years. Uh,
mhm,
I mean, I hate to say this, but high school football is a lot better in the western part of the state.
yeah,
It's just a fact. I don't think I think Tarboro will win the 1As. I think Dudley is going to win the 3As. Dudley, I don't really consider them to be west. They're pretty much central, but they play in the west.
yeah.
2As Shelby, I think is the best, but again, Shelby, they they could lose against Walls Rose Hill. I mean,
They
that's
could, they could,
so
yeah,
we might have a two or 3-1 split, but I think each side is at least going to win one game. I think more chance than not, the West will win 3 state championships. I do like to see more parity though within the ranks. Like if you go to the
mhm,
4As right now in the West, you might have probably 6 or 7 teams in any given year could win the state championship. I don't think that's the same in the East. I think it's more like 3 or 4. I think that's the case with all the classifications. I just think the Western side has got
right.
more depth.
So I see the question asking about, we all agree Nick Maddox is a great ball player. And being a state fan, I really like T.A. McClendon. But T.A. is a great back, but, T.A. was a man running amongst boys in 1A.
Right.
And so he was a guy that would be starting at any squad anywhere, playing in 1A ball. So um, I, I just I've not seen this athlete. And TA was a bigger body guy than Smothers is. Um, as I say, that would be his only knock would be his physical size. Um, his speed, his vision. Oh my gosh! I mean, he sees this stuff, and then to be you got to see, and I'll tag the tweet. I'll get the video back and tag it. That step forward, step back, step to the side. I mean, he'd already made a cut prior to the step forward back, but that whole thing, um, when you see it, you're like, how did he do that? Uh, the number of backs that could make that move is very limited, especially in high school. Um, so yeah, you agree. Maddox and McClendon were great backs, right?
Oh, I agree. McClendon, I mean, he was not just a great back. He was bigger, in at least in 1A football. He was bigger in probably all but maybe one or two of the defenders that he had
Yeah.
ran against in 1A ball. I mean, it's just the only team that could ever handle TA to a decent degree was Thomasville, and
Hmm.
I mean, McClendon would have an off night and only have 150 or 170 yards or so. That's McClendon was awesome. I mean, I think he was 5'10". I think it was up to like 235. I mean, he was huge.
He was a big boy.
I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't mama's fat either. He wasn't mama's
No.
biscuits on him either. He was a big, big, muscular guy there. Um, yeah, gosh, and, it's hard to believe this, but McClendon is 38 years old. I just checked it up right now. And
Right.
he, biggest mistake I thought they ever had was when he got pushed out to the NC State. I think he should have played his senior year at the NC State. Shouldn't have
Yeah.
gone pro.
Yeah. And his biggest problem in college was injury. And I think his injury problem had a lot to do with his, I don't know, he did have a desire to get the extra yard. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes that desire to get the extra yard led to some injuries.
I mean, he had a couple shoulder separations, a wrist
Yeah.
fracture. I mean,
So,
it also I think it hurt his ability to. I mean, he wasn't a turnover machine, but he did have some costly turnovers in his
yeah,
career.
he did. So,
But
but he was a great back. And, Joe McIntosh was a great high school back as well. Um, what was his name at Rose? Andre. He played at State. Oh God, what was his name? Why can't I'm drawing a blank? He was another one of those men among boys.
right,
I remember watching the state championship game and watching him run around out there, and he really looked like a man running around with boys. So we've seen a lot of good running backs. I don't think that just McClendon and Maddox are. There's been a lot of phenomenal running backs, but
he was the running back for Carolina last year. That was not 2021, but 2020. Williams. What was his first name? Was it Devontae or Javante or?
Devontae wasn't it? But
I think it
yeah,
was. He went to Wallace Rose Hill. And did you know that he was his team or his school's valedictorian?
no, I didn't know that.
And he scored a touchdown for the Denver Broncos this last week.
Oh wow, wow,
Let me find his.
that's
I'm horrible with names, so it's Javante.
Devontae.
That's yeah, 5'10", 220 pounds.
Carolina had a good backfield that year.
Now, with T.A. McClendon, I always have a soft spot. My mother taught him arts when he was in his elementary years,
Hmm.
and the other guy that I always have a soft spot was over at UNC also, Antonio Williams. He went to
Hmm.
North Stanley. he, he was the guy that took away a lot of shame for being a 1989 North Stanley grad. Because our football team history is horrible until Antonio got there. We
Right.
like I think we were basically at I'm gonna say about two every 3 games we would win one game in our history for the first 50 years, and then the last 9 years we've had all winning seasons. So
Yeah. So I say, of Corey Alexander and Michael Waddell. Yeah, especially Waddell. I don't. I think we all remember him playing. Oh boy, uh, the state has had some very good running backs.
Oh yeah.
We have been blessed with a lot of good running backs.
Now
Quavaris Crouch was a good running back.
who's that running back that Tom Knott still has nightmares from 34 years
Well, that's
later?
what I was saying. I just mentioned him a moment ago, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
Anthony Barber.
uh, you know, State has had so many good running backs. Oh, Garner, man, I tell you, that's
Well, Anthony Barber is a tough man. I mean, I'm not Jewish, but
uh,
he's a mensch. I mean, he is a man. He was going undergoing chemotherapy and still coaching Jordan High School a few years ago.
right.
I mean, he is tough. And if you saw him, he's I think Anthony's 1 year older than I am. He's probably 51. I'm 50, and he had just his body. There was no fat on him. I mean, he was just muscular
Hmm.
to this day, and just a nice individual. Just a sweetheart of a person.
Yeah, what did
And
he have? 4 touchdowns in that game.
I know he had like 343 yards. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. It was
And t-
that was going to be Harding State Championship. That was their state championship.
I'll never forget that clip from the Gardner head football coach right before the game. He's like, "They think they think we're nothing but rednecks down here in Gardner. Gardner, yeah, my name is yeah, talk like this and Gardner. We're rednecks." And you look around there, and Gardner is not like it's a middle of a cow pasture. It's not like it's New London, North Carolina, or
Or
you
Frog
know,
Pond.
Frog Pond or Big Lick or something like that. I mean, it'd be like calling Concord, or well, actually Concord 35 years ago was a redneck place.
Right.
Let's not kid ourselves
No,
about
but
it.
I know what you're talking about.
But
It's
it'd be like calling Cary a redneck place.
right.
And anyway, it was really funny listening to him, and his players believed everything he said too, which was even better. But
Well, it's motivation.
yeah,
That's the key is you give people reasons to be motivated.
yeah.
And sometimes in games like that, you have to find motivation. Uh, and if you can be the more motivated person, look what can happen. So that was not expected. And wow, just kind of like walked up and slapped Tom Knotts in the face.
Well, last week we talked about NC State, about who the coaches that you would who
Yep.
you want to, if you could had to have a one really good season, or who you had good game. I think you said Lou Holtz for the one good game, and was it Bo Ryan for the season?
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
I said I'd take Dick Sheridan for the
And I
season.
and I can agree with the Dick Sheridan thing. Yep. Uh-huh.
Let's talk about Wake Forest now. Let's rank your three best Wake coaches.
Oh
Well,
God.
let's make it four. Let's the best four Forest coaches in the last 40 years. And
Go ahead.
well, my number one pick is Jim Grobe.
Okay.
I think Jim Grobe is the best. Now, the second one, you're going to might be a little bit surprised by this one, but I'm going to take John Makovic.
Okay. Okay.
So that was a little bit hard to swallow. The third one is obviously your current coach here, Dave Clawson. I think
Yeah.
he's up there. And the fourth one, I'm going to surprise you here because this is a sentimental pick. He's Nobody else is going to pick him as four or five or six. Be Tom Harper, because I'm friends with Tom's son. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Tom Harper was the Wake Forest coach back in 1972. If I wasn't being biased, it would
Yeah.
be
Wasn't
between
he?
Al Groh and Bill Dooley.
See, I like Dooley. And wasn't Harper the coach? Was he the coach when Gail Sayers was there?
he
The
was
Bill Sears. Um,
Gil Sayers. It was I think it was Bill Tate or not Gil Sayers or you're talking about Piccolo.
yeah, Piccolo. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, Bill Tate was the coach
Yeah,
then.
yeah, Piccolo. I'm sorry. Gail Sears was his buddy.
You know,
I'm
Gil
sorry.
Sayers just died recently. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Um,
he just died recently. Now, okay, let's talk. Let's get real here. Best five football movies.
best five football movies.
Yeah, I mean Brian's Song is my first one. I mean, I love Brian's
Yeah,
Song.
I like Brian's song. Brian's song's a different kind of a movie, though,
Yeah,
than like say a Rudy,
right.
which I like.
And Rudy's number two for me.
Yeah, so those two are probably my two top picks. Um, Rudy might be number one. I don't know. That's a great movie. I agree. I like the Water Boy. If you
Oh,
want to
that's a
laugh,
great.
the Water Boy is a okay. Yeah, so definitely Water Boy because
Well,
you know what it
Henry
made me.
Winkler is a good actor.
That movie made me laugh. So
Yeah,
um,
I'll throw Waterboy up there, the number
I,
three.
I, I
Remember
can
the Titans, number four.
I can accept. Remember the Titans too. Yeah,
Although the Remember the Titans, it wasn't really. It
the
was
longest
it
yard.
was it was very loosely based on the truth and facts. You know that when it
Mhm.
comes to they didn't win the state championship after the player got it. I mean, a lot of that was just kind of thrown together. It was like a mixture of about three or four seasons all in one.
I did like the longest yard.
Oh yes,
The
the
first
first
longest
one.
yard. Yeah.
Yeah, the second one wasn't bad either, but
Yeah, I really like the first one. I'm not sure how much of a it's a football movie, whether we want to prison or not. It's a football movie.
right.
Um, so yeah, it's We Are Marshall's a good one too. Yeah,
How about North Dallas 40? You remember that movie?
I do. I do. Yeah, yeah.
That was
No,
probably the
wasn't that
most
Nick Nolte?
Nick Nolte. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably the most um, probably the most realistic of all the football movies. You had
Hmm.
the guy from the Oakland Raiders, the crazy guy, John Matusak was in that movie,
Hmm.
and he was crazy. That rascal was just one of the craziest people ever. So anyway, Dale, I know you got to be tired. I know I am. You there, Dale? Dale, I think you're frozen. Yes, I think Dale is, or maybe I'm Radio. That's another good movie. I do like Radio. Um, you know that the guy that the movie Radio is based off. I believe he passed away not that long ago, last year or so. Where was that? In, was it Hannah High School in South Carolina? Is that where that was? He's frozen. Yeah, I don't know that one. Dale, I think you are frozen here. He is frozen. So anyway, guys, I think that's about all we can do tonight anyway. For Jim West, Dale Ross, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and wherever you are this coming Friday, or actually Friday's tomorrow. Gosh, usually we have our show on Wednesday nights, but no matter where you are tomorrow, if you can go to a game, it should be some really good weather. So anyway, guys, have a good evening. See ya.